Back in the 2021 NFL Draft, many people, including myself, were convinced Zach Wilson was going to be a superstar. He was the next great quarterback. However, it did not work out that way. Zach Wilson obviously has really struggled with the Jets to the point where just 3 years after getting drafted with the number 2 overall pick, he has gotten traded for a 6th round pick by the Denver Broncos. So what happened? How did things go so wrong so quickly? Well, I wanted to go back and watch BYU film. Say, okay, what did we all like about him in the first place? Why did he go 2nd overall? Because there's this weird narrative that has formed that, like, he got drafted because of the pro day. He was already the consensus number 2 player on the board before the pro day. The pro day had nothing to do with, it might have had something to do with the hype around him, but it had nothing to do with him actually getting drafted or being viewed as a great prospect. So going back and watching the film, you certainly see a lot of really good stuff. Like things like this, where it's going to be, route concept on the screen where you can have more of a deeper route and a more over the middle route. Zach Wilson is going to take the snap, runs a play action, and the deep route gets open, and you see he's throwing towards the deep route. I mean, this is a good read by Zach Wilson, which is something you don't hear very often anymore, but you certainly heard a good amount at BYU. Also, a really accurate throw by Wilson. Maybe you could argue a touch too far, but hey, it's down the field. You're wanting to make sure you get the completion there. So, really good stuff by Zach Wilson. This is something that you would see a good amount of. Like this play's another one where the concept is you have, it's zone coverage again that they're going up against. You have a receiver running a deep shot, and then another receiver, for kind of a split second, he's going to kind of fake as though he's running more of a curl route. But then he's going to essentially just follow that receiver running a deep shot as hopefully there will be a window. Wilson takes the snap, he looks in that direction and fires in that direction. You see he's throwing the ball right now, and it's really well timed as this is right when the play is working. Wilson does get the ball over there, and they're able to get a completion. So we definitely saw some good examples of Wilson being a quote-unquote game manager, right? Which is certainly not something you would consider him now. It's funny because game manager is always considered an insult until you're a quarterback who doesn't work out in the NFL, and then it's, well, you didn't manage the game well enough. That's usually how things work. So what is it? Did he just get worse once he got to the NFL? Well, no, I think that's actually a bit too simplistic. I do think you saw some warning signs looking at the film with hindsight that maybe you could have seen prior, but certainly you can see now. To me, a play like this really defines Zach Wilson, and I think why he was so hyped up and why it didn't work out at the NFL level, or at least I should say hasn't worked out yet. This is a 4th down and goal situation. Key situation for BYU, zone coverage, and I'm highlighting that the route you see on the screen. That's a route that can get open against this type of concept in an inside the 5 situation. Wilson takes the snap and he doesn't really even look in that direction. It is open, but Wilson just isn't looking there. Honestly, even the halfback who's underneath, that's a play that could work. Wilson is not doing this either. This is not good. He should be getting rid of the football right now, and this is something that at the NFL level has essentially crushed him. Well, you might be wondering, well, why did nobody freak out about this, coming out of college? Like, why wasn't this talked about more? Why didn't this hurt his draft stock more? Well, because this play isn't over yet. Watch him scramble outside the numbers, gets all the way over, throws off balance, and makes a perfect throw, and they get a touchdown. So it's like, wow, that was really impressive, but he made things so much more difficult on himself, and this stuff can work at college, especially in BYU, but it's just not going to work at the NFL level. If you look at his weaknesses page from 2021 on Walter Football, which, by the way, is a great website, highly recommend it. It has a pretty good backlog of a lot of evaluations. So if you're curious why, hey, what did people think about that guy coming out of college? It's a great tool to use. I recommend. But you see, this was Zach Wilson's weaknesses page in 2021. Some things I'm not sure how much to pay attention to, like, aspects of poor football character. Whoever really knows with that stuff, in my opinion, unless you've actually met the guy. But 1 year wondered, that's fair. Lean build, could stand to add more weight. Not sure if that's really been the issue at the NFL level. Lacks experience against elite competition, which is certainly something that I think is worth noting. But these last two are the real key ones, in my opinion. Should get quicker working through progressions, and accuracy suffers under pressure. And in fact, I found a back-to-back play sequence in the Jets that I think completely describes Zach Wilson. So first we have this play, which is going to be a zone coverage play. And in my opinion, this is to some degree part of what I believe in, which is you do need to be in a good situation as a young quarterback to develop. Like developing a quarterback, we always kind of assume that, well, quarterbacks are either going to be good or they're going to be bad. But the number one predictor of success for a quarterback is the situation they're drafted into. And there's no denying the offensive situation for Zach Wilson was not very good. Something like this, zone coverage, Zach Wilson takes the snap, and just worth noting, this is last year, so this is not his rookie year. This was the most recent year, one of his most recent games he played. See, hey, a check down is open, Wilson's going to throw it there. However, this pass is dropped. Okay, is what it is, drop passes do happen, but watch what Zach Wilson would then follow it up with. So it's going to be a zone coverage play once again, but this is where things get a little bit tricky. Wilson takes a snap, and there's a play action. Pressure is going to kind of come a little bit earlier, but you still have time to make a throw right here, in my opinion. But with a tight end and halfback, both checkdowns getting open right here for Wilson, that's really what he should be doing. He should be getting rid of the football right here. He has time. But this time he's a bit more cautious and ends up getting sacked. And to me, this is Zach Wilson to a T. This is the issue with Zach Wilson, is he was just never quick enough at this underneath stuff and getting rid of the football quickly. Who knows? Maybe he could be a Geno Smith type player who eventually figures it out if he can just hang around in the league for enough time and finally get an opportunity. Okay, possibly. But, and I'm certainly not trying to sit here and say that he would be a great player if he was on San Francisco, but because he's on the Jets that, he failed. All I'm doing is saying, I think that when a play backfired, he very quickly abandoned it and was trying to kind of wait for something better to arrive when something better just usually didn't arrive, and he would have been better off still just getting rid of the football underneath and more of these over the middle type plays, even if it resulted in the occasional tip pass or interception, because when he held on to the ball and ran outside the numbers at the NFL level, they almost never resulted in good plays. So people will say, well, why did Zach Wilson fail? Oh, it's because at the, he was playing at such a low level of competition. That's why. Well, I don't know. Mahomes played at a low level of competition. I don't think that's why. Like, Mahomes' great highlights in college were also kind of similar to Wilson's great highlights in college. The difference, I think, is Mahomes is so good at processing plays that he, knows where to go with the football before the ball is snapped at times. At the very least, once the ball is snapped, he figures things out very quickly. And Mahomes is great under pressure. Wilson struggles under pressure and gets significantly worse. So for Wilson, he just essentially one of the biggest parts of Mahomes' game, actually, Wilson just doesn't have. And comparing anyone to Patrick Mahomes is going to be a tough thing to live up to, so he already had maybe too much hype going into his, career in general. But even so, I think why he hasn't been able to succeed is he hasn't been able to improve on the processing side of the game. But that brings us back to the evaluation. How should you view Zach Wilson, knowing what we know now? You could easily sit here and say, well, we should have known he sucks at processing plays and is bad under pressure. Those things are going to hurt him at the NFL level. But there's been plenty of players who have had every single issue that Zach Wilson has had and succeeded. CJ Stroud's big criticism was kind of similar to Wilson's big criticism. Once pressure comes, it's a bit of an issue, and he could process plays a little bit faster when they're, because a lot of times it's a little bit slower just because the offense, things got very open for Stroud, similar to how they got very open for Wilson. But didn't matter. Stroud had some issues that he improved upon pretty quickly at the NFL level and has been awesome. Zach Wilson was a one-year wonder. Well, so was Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's been awesome. Evaluating quarterbacks is hard, and it's easy to see in hindsight why quarterbacks fail, but it's much tougher in foresight to predict that they're not going to get better at it. So the way I view it is if there's another Zach Wilson type prospect that comes in, I would still draft him, and I would still hope that I can improve that stuff. And maybe you're going to get a bust, but at the end of the day, that's also not the worst thing in the world. Because if they suck right away, well, then they suck, and you can move off of them. So it's interesting. But yeah, that's why I think Zach Wilson failed in the NFL. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.